I'm pretty convinced he's seen the best of what the long run's got to offer. And I always remember a quote that Nicky Henderson gave before he actually won his Gold Cup, where he said, well, you know, the horse is the finished article, he is what he is, he's done all this racing in France, he's not going to improve, you know, this is him. And that was a couple of seasons ago. He's been in some tough battles since then. He was in that race that me and Declan talked about earlier at Punchestown. It was a really, really hard race. Didn't come back very well at Wetherby. I don't think other trainers will be frightened of him anymore. I think he won the King George last year because of the circumstances. It was a very, very wet day at Kempton. The conditions were very testing. He was taking on some doubtful stayers, and even then he struggled to get past Captain Chris. So the form taken, you know, at face value, isn't that great? He's turning out to be a big price now for the King George, but he could be any price. I still wouldn't fancy him. I just can't have him anymore. It's been great, but not now.
Well, Richard, if we're looking at a new name on the roll of honour, sort of who's towards the head of the market?
At the moment, Dinast 5-1, clear favourite. We talked about this horse plenty already, but he's got form over the course and distance. This looks the obvious target, bearing in mind I don't think he is an out-and-out stayer. So it's a speed favouring track. Last year was an exception with the ground being so heavy. Probably 8 out of 10 King Georges, William Hill King Georges, will be run on decent ground, which will suit him. Not normally a too big a field, which again for me will suit him. So yeah, he, as things stand, he's probably the one to beat, bearing in mind that, you know, obviously Bobsworth's in the list, but I'd be very surprised if he ran. Q-Card we've discussed, Nick's certainly a fan, and I think he's a big player if he turns up. It wasn't the right Q-Card conditions for Q-Card last year, and on normal Kempton conditions he's a big player. I'd love to see Sir Deschamps run. I think, bearing in mind his best form is on decent ground, why go and stay in Ireland over Christmas? Why not come over? I think we'll be doing some lobbying with Eddie O'Leary to see if we can persuade them to make the trip over. And if he does come over, he'd be a massive player because everything's right for him.
Do you think he might, Declan?
I'd have to say no, because Willie Mullins will probably just support the Irish race. To be honest, he is that kind of trainer. I think Cheltenham aside, Punchestown, you see what he does there every year. He loves having winners at the big Irish festival. So I'd be very surprised if Sir Deschamps did come to the King George.
Could there be any Irish raiders? Any you think could make the trip?
Ben Efficient might come over. I'm still not sure about him over this trip. Flemenstar, I think, would be interesting if he came over because, as Richard said, this is kind of a speed favouring track. He jumps well. I know a lot of people won't say he's a 3-miler. I still maintain he can hold a high level of form over 3 miles, but 2.5 is his best. They're the only two. Maybe Mount Ben Bulbin as well, but he doesn't look good enough. I really do think last year's novice chasers were a motley crew. They're not compared to the likes of Sylvan Yackel, Conti and Bobsworth and whatnot.
Nick, what do you make of Sylvan Yackel, Conti? Because it was quite deliberate that they missed the King George last year with it.
Yeah, I was really annoyed because I put him up in the racing post for the race and he didn't bloody go for it. And he gave him a rest, saying, he's flip-flopped a little bit about this horse. He missed Cheltenham, the RSA chase the year before, went to Aintree, and he won at Aintree, which made me think, well, flat track, 3 miles, that's what he wants. He'll go for the King George. Then he went on at Wetherby really well. He won at Haydock really well. He was the best chaser around at that stage of last season. And he didn't go for it, and I think it was a lost opportunity because, as I mentioned the form earlier, I don't think there's anything to write home about. And then, of course, he went for the Gold Cup, and it's never nice to see a horse falling, but happening when it did might have just preserved him a little bit for this season. He didn't get into that war with Sir Deschamps and Bobsworth, and now he is going for the King George, so I don't quite know what to make of it. From the vibes I get from Ditchy, and I certainly have no in with them, but listening to people who do have ins with them, is that Alpha Off is really quite strongly fancied. He's had a long time off through injury, but he's come back apparently better than ever in really, really good form. He runs very soon at Ascot, and it wouldn't be a surprise to me if Alpha Off turned out to be the Ditchy number 1 for that race. and would be the biggest danger to Dynast. I really get the feeling Alpha Off, they strongly fancy him.
You mentioned Dynast in part one. Do you think he is the one to beat in the King George? Is the one they've got to get?
Yeah, I think so, because of the reasons I stated earlier. I think I'm convinced he's better earlier in the campaign, i.e. this side of the new year. He put up one of his best displays last season at Kempton on testing ground, when a lot of people didn't think he would stay in that ground, but he did it perfectly and made up length at his fences. Tom Scudamore always had him in the right place and made it very, very easy for him. Kempton probably does suit him because, it does place slight more emphasis on speed than a place like Cheltenham, and Dynast has plenty of speed, I'm sure about that. So if you haven't got on him already, he's probably short enough, but yeah, I think he's the one to beat.
Okay, so Dynast for Nick, and for you, Declan?
I'd have to go with Alpha Off. I think he's a massive price, 12-1, I really do. Bobsworth is not going to run. Long run is very beatable. Alpha Off's selection for me at 12s, and I hope Richard will forgive me for putting up Captain Chris at 25-1 with Ladbrokes. That's a big price as well.
And just remind me, Richard, what would your selection be?
Not being original here, but Dynast I think is going to be hard to beat.
Okay, well, also the William Hill King George Festival is the Desert Orchid Chase, and really this is an interesting race because Sprinter Sacre are not likely to go for it, according to Nicky Henderson in his stable tour. So that leaves who else is going to turn up? Who are the other 2 milers that could land a big pot here?
Well, I don't see why. I wouldn't have a clue what plans Willie Mullins has got for Sanctuaire, but this would be a very winnable race, and he won it last season, so why would he not come back again and do the same thing? Mullins made a play in the summer of saying he'd come over to Britain more often this winter and try and pluck the big prizes, because he's got formidable strength, the best team he's probably ever had in terms of depth. So we might see the old warrior Sanctuaire again, probably facing off against wishful thinking. Might even see King Keel in the field again. Who knows? It could be that kind of race.
I mean, do you think Sanctuaire should make the trip?
No. Look, Sanctuaire is a rogue. He keeps plenty for himself. He's not straightforward. He's a talented horse on his day, of course, but you can't be backing horses like that. One of Mullins is that if did come over is a Rica Legionnaire. Mullins is, as Nick said, he's going to have more runners in the UK this year. A Rica Legionnaire is a horse that needs to go right-handed. He's much better right-handed, as his wins at Ferryhouse and Punchestown show last year. Obviously pulled up, I think, at Cheltenham. If he came over, he could go well. But I take it if Sprinter Sacre is not running here, Nicky must have this pinpointed for Captain Conan, I'd imagine, who, I think Connections made a big mistake last year not running him in the Arkle, because obviously Simon Sig was off his game and that race was very winnable for him, and then he didn't get home. It did look like he didn't get home in the juicing. So if Nicky says Sprinter Sacre's not coming here, I'd imagine Captain Conan is the one to be with.
Yeah, Richard, Captain Conan, a horse they've always thought an awful lot of down at the yard at Seven Barrows.
Yeah, no, it's on public record. Corky Brown, long-standing head lad, thinks he's the best horse in the yard, although he obviously isn't. Corky still maintains he's the best. For me at the moment, he's a horse without a trip. He's actually in the King George, and for me, I think he's a horse that would actually benefit from a step up. He doesn't do anything particularly quickly, and I think now he's a year older. For me, I'd be looking at 2.5, 3 rather than going back to 2. But that's just a personal view.
Yeah. Well, the King George meeting for the last few years has witnessed some pretty decent performances by novices in the staying races, the likes of Long Run going back a few years, Grand Cru, and also last year with Dynast. There's sure to be a good turnout for the Feltham again. Nick, sort of looking at the staying novices, who would be towards the 4 for you?
African Gold is a horse who runs on Saturday, I believe, at Cheltenham for Nigel Twiston-Davies. I know he thinks the world of this horse, and rightly so. He had a great campaign last season, only beaten by at Fisher's Cross at Cheltenham. He can make a very, very good staying chaser. Whether he goes for the Feltham, obviously we don't know at this stage, but he'd be high on my list of potential staying chase, and so would Smad Place. You know, it doesn't always work out that if a horse is highly rated over hurdles, they go on to do as well over fences. Often it's harder for them, but Smad Place looks as though he's taken to the job. I thought he was slightly unlucky at Huntingdon. He did make an error at the last, but I thought Chock may have done a bit better and might have stayed on him. Yeah, I wouldn't put that totally down to the horse. It was just a novice-y mistake, and he got in too close, didn't know what to do. Put that right at Exeter today, much better, didn't touch a twig, really bold at some of his fences. Looks as though he has taken to the job, and you know, he does bring a lot of class to the table, placed in 2 world hurdles behind Big Bucks, and again last season as well behind Solvit. So, you know, he's one to look forward to for the Alan King team. Those 2 would be the top of my list of staying chasers.
And a couple in the mix then for Nick. Declan, looking at the Irish scene, who's sort of top of the tree in terms of the stayers?
In terms of the stayers, I do like Desi Hughes' horse, Bright New Dawn. Had a couple of runs last year. If you go back and look at all his form, it's behind Jess Key, Champagne Fever, all these types of horse, Defy Logic as well. By presenting out of a strong stamina influence on the dam side as well, I'm pretty sure he can go well in the staying division in Ireland this year. Don Cossack is a horse who's making these connections, have been making big noise about him for a while. In terms of Cheltenham, I don't think he's a Cheltenham horse. He looks to me like a horse who just loves a slog. I think all his breeding is German. The dam sire is German as well, and he looks to me like he's going to just want a bit of a slog. But in Ireland, he should go well this year. There's one of Willie Mullins' there that I think is a bit of a forgotten horse this year. Is Felix Younger, who people might remember. He was second to Simon Sig in the Neptune 2 years ago. Had Monksland, I think, 11 lengths back in third. He was since gone in to win a Grade 2. Missed last year with an injury. Came back at the end of Punchestown and jumped very well on his beginner chase debut. Because that came so late in the season, he's still a novice this year. He's one that another Irish kind of stayer that I'd have to the top of my list.
And Richard, are there any names that you're particularly wary of at this time of year?
There's one I think we'll bring to the table here from my friend Shane at Seven Barrows. Looks after 3 horses. Bobsworth obviously number 1, but clear number 2 is Close Touch, owned by the Queen. Only defeat last year was against the aforementioned African Gold. I've seen him, he's big and well and fit, and I think the Felton would be on his radar. Nicky really thinks this is a proper horse. That win at Sandown in the EBF final, and that was, it was bad ground, but that horse was very impressive. And actually the 4th horse that day, another Nicky horse, Whisper, one of Di Walters, and Di's actually bought African Gold recently, although he's kept him with Nigel. Whisper again is a lovely horse that Nicky thinks the world of, and he'll be a proper horse going fencing. But Close Touch has probably got a little bit more class, and I think for horses to follow, he'd definitely be, well, he is on my list. So.
Yeah.
In Ireland, Arkle is all about Champagne Fever this year. This horse is one of the most exciting. I think he's the most exciting chaser to come in this year. Cheltenham form is. You know, he's won a bumper, he's won a Supreme Novice Hurdle. He was going to go over fences last year at school already, which is probably why he wasn't so great over some of his hurdles last year. Gave him the year to go hurdling, turned out to be a good decision, ended up winning the Supreme. I think he was one of the first horse since Monty Laddo to do the bumper Supreme double. He is all class, and fences will make the best out of him. He's the top Irish horse, I think, in the 2 mile division. One that I think is not too far behind him that could go well is Defy Logic of Paul Nolan's. He's another classy horse, this lad. The only thing I worry about this fella is he's very keen, he's very hard on himself. While it might look like he's having easy races and beating horses, I don't think that's the case. So I just worry about longevity for him. But he made a bright chasing debut there about 2 weeks ago now. He was, apart from, I think he dived at the 3rd, he was faultless. So Defy Logic and Champagne Fever, and maybe the 3rd one is Desi Hughes's Art of Logistics. He should go well around the 2 mile division. to me, would be the top 3 mile novice chasers over 2 miles this year in Ireland.
You got one there?
Yeah, I remember now. Tanako Emery, he's only a handicapper over hurdles, but it's a really good race at Utoxeter a few weeks ago between him and Raya Star. I got the feeling that Tanako Emery possibly should have won that race. Just Raya Star met the last couple of fences just slightly better, but it wouldn't surprise me if Tanako Emery improved past him. Whether he's an Arkle horse or not, I'm not quite sure, but he'd be one I'd have on my radar. And I know Declan's not a big fan of this horse, and probably most of the audience won't be, but I wouldn't give up on Grondaway just yet either. I think he just needs a full season. If he gets a full season in with him, I still think he could be quite good. He was booked for second last time, but he jumped really well at Sandown for the most part. Does have a lot of class. He's just very fragile, and if Nicky could just get a full season into him, I think we could actually see, you know, we've seen a shell of a horse so far. I think we could see the real deal if he can just keep him sound.